191, my friends. 191. Wow. And let's get straight to the introduction because the talent does not wait, ladies and gentlemen. The
I got
talent,
things to do, people
he's
to
got
see,
things to
things.
do. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I am fine and dandy. We've got a pretty big announcement this week, along with a pretty good show, I think.
I think we've got an interesting combination of things that we've watched this week, and yeah, big announcement for the end of the show. I think that's. Oh, when do you want to do it?
Hey, might as well just rip the band-aid off for our
Sure.
adoring fans.
Yes. Sure.
As you are all aware, the demands on anyone's time these days are significant.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this will be the last show for the year of 2023.
Yes.
If we'd actually planned it, we might have done something different. But do I really look like a guy with a plan? As a great man once said, I'm a dog chasing cards. If I wouldn't know what to do if I caught one. So we don't have a plan, but this is life is just doing its thing. There's a lot
Yes.
going on in our world, so we
Mm-hmm.
need to
Take some
concentrate on
time off.
things that actually pay the bills and people who demand our time. So
Absolutely.
that's going to take up the rest of 2023, and I have to hazard a guess a decent chunk of the first part of 2024. So this is not we're not saying goodbye. We're just saying so long for
Yes,
now.
but we're gonna try and that's like where possible, if we can get things aligned, we'll try and just do like special op-eds or something.
I would hope that maybe we could do a Christmas episode, but I'm not promising anything.
But I still like the fact that Travis had a very good idea of revisiting some of the controversial, diametrically opposed review opinions of movies that we had. So maybe we'll do just a short kind of retrospect of one movie at a time, just to save on some time where we can fit it in when we can. But yeah, so yeah,
Enjoy it while you
sad
can,
news.
people.
But we are, like we say, we are not gone forever. We will be back, and Dax Shepard still can't have the title Armchair Producers. Sorry.
Dax Shepard, he made that Chips movie. That was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid.
I
Chips, and
remember Chips as like I never watched it, but it was just the one that was talked about. People always talked about Chips.
Eric Estrada and stuff, and he
Yeah.
remade Chips, and he did a shit job of it. Fuck you, Dax Shepard. Um,
Although he was funny in Idiocracy.
yes. It's a bit like when you say the Baldwins can't act, and someone says, "Hey, Steven was pretty good in The Usual Suspects," and you're like, "I can't argue with that. He was."
Yeah, that's fair. Everybody gets one.
So we are going to talk the final Chain movie of the
Mhm.
chain for now. It will
Mhm.
probably continue at some point in the future, but it will be, of course, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Mhm.
The way back when movie from the 70s, The Doll Squad, the strangely influential The Doll Squad.
Yeah.
And our newish movie of the week turned out to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. We had hoped
Mhm.
to do Mission Impossible. It's not out on streaming in Australia yet, and I'm not
Mhm.
going to try and find a fucking cinema still showing it.
Yeah.
So
And
we,
unfortunately, Tom Cruise was not returning our calls.
Tom, it used to be about the music, man. Now it's all about you.
It's all about him. But never mind. That's fine. We can accept that. We can move on.
Should we should
Speaking
we
of
um
moving on,
should we just jump on into
let's
the
jump on into Star Wars.
So I picked this. Our link to Lincoln
Mhm.
from the last show we did was Adam Driver,
Mhm.
um, and I felt this did fit into the theme of our conversation around revisiting some of the more controversial films
Mm.
that we disagreed on. And I don't fully recall how much we disagreed on this one, but I feel like we did. Because I remember quite disliking it. And I feel like you had a little bit more time for it than I did.
Yes.
So I thought it'd be interesting with 6 years, 6 years since this film came out, which is remarkable. With some time and some space, and at least one other Star Wars sequel, maybe it's a good time to take another look at it.
I was going to say 6 years, and in that 6 years, we've had the finale of the Skywalker saga, apparently. We've had 3 seasons of Mandalorian. We've also had 1 season of Boba Fett. We've had a season of Ahsoka. And that's not even including the animated stuff of Bad Batch, which finished off the Clone Wars saga and was required reading the Clone Wars for if you really wanted to understand what was going on in Ahsoka.
So I think
We both had before this movie came out. We both had the interesting thought of Rian Johnson writing and directing a Star Wars movie, because this was quite out of left field for what he had been making.
I think before this it was Looper. Was that his most recent film before this?
Yeah,
Before that we had films like Brick and The Brothers Bloom.
Yeah.
Very sort of intellectually indie sort of focused films.
Yeah.
But I think Looper may have been, I assume Looper's a studio film, I don't know. But again, that was a very highbrow, intellectual sci-fi time travel action film. So to jump into a studio film, part of a franchise, was a bit left field. But I can say I felt very positive about that. Remember, the original plan was J.J. Abrams did one, Rian Johnson did the second one, and then Colin Trevorrow originally set to do the third of the Star Wars sequels. Of course, he dropped out to do another terrible Jurassic Park movie, and J.J. Abrams replaced him doing the third one. But I remember thinking in the 90s when the prequels came out, I'm like, why don't they just go out? Doesn't Lucas, he can't direct. He can write, he can't direct. So why does he go out and get three of the most talented, passionate young filmmakers in the world who want to do a Star Wars film? At that time, I was thinking of Kevin Smith. Like, he just did Chasing Amy. It was a good film. I liked that when it came out. We had Dogma about the same time as well. He was doing well. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm sure Tarantino wouldn't have done it, but other people have had Robert Rodriguez. Somebody like that. And of course, he didn't do that. He did them all himself. So I always liked the fact that Disney looked like it was taking my advice finally and went out and got JJ's not young, but three of the more interesting and talented directors going around. And I do realize he used interesting in the same sentence as J.J. Abrams.
But there was one key element that Disney did not take from you, which was, yes, bring in this fresh alternative talent, but have a plan. They did not have a plan.
Whiteboard somewhere with the fucking anyway. So that is the key problem with this film. However, that problem became less of a problem, if that's the right way to put it, after the third one. So you can't really detach this from what happened afterwards in some ways. But I guess we can cover that as we go down the rabbit hole. So Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. It is written and directed by Rian Johnson. We have Daisy Ridley back as Rey, John Boyega back as Finn, Mark Hamill returning as Luke Skywalker, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia, Adam Driver, Oscar Isaac, Andy Serkis, Lupita Nyong'o, Anthony Daniels, Donald Gleason, Gwendolyn Christie, it's Benicio del Toro, Frank Oz is back. It's Laura Dern in a star-making role, almost a return to the star. Roles for Laura Dern as Admiral Holdo. The first problem with this film is the runtime. It goes for 2 hours and 32 minutes. By this point in time, it was the longest Star Wars film ever. I don't know how long the third one.
I think the third one was shorter.
But the other sort of part that really bothered me at the time was, as you sort of insinuated there, was that I liked The Force Awakens. What did you like The Force Awakens?
I thought it was fine. It was a perfectly cromulent update to A New Hope.
That's exactly what it was. And I think that people are forgetting now in hindsight that it's interesting in the years since these films started coming out that there has been a rehabilitation of a prequel trilogy. And I think that's millennials. These are kids who grew up. These were their Star Wars films, the original trilogy, you and I. And so they seem to have a great affinity for these films. I still think they're shite.
But
in 2015 when The Force Awakens came out, I think we all felt like we needed an apology from the Star Wars universe, and I think that's what The Force Awakens was.
Oh yeah.
This is just fan service. It's just a new hope with some new players and a fresh coat of paint. And you know what? I was good with that. I enjoyed it. It was fun, but I did want something a little bit more substantial for my second course. And I think Ryan tried to serve that up. But my initial problem with this film when it first came out was all the leads, if you will, that JJ set up in the first film that we all assumed we would then follow through the next two. Basically, Ryan decided he wasn't interested in. And he just basically he almost rebooted the trilogy again in the second film with, obviously we do have Kylo Ren and his relationship with Rey, but apart from that, let's just forget about what happened in the last one. He takes out Snoke halfway through the film. Snoke's nobody. The idea that Rey is, who her parents really are, he sets up in this film and basically says she has no interesting lineage. She's nobody. Her parents were, who dumped her and scrapped
Chunksters,
and that she's not a Skywalker. She's not, as we know now, she's a Palpatine. And all of those leads and interesting ideas that we just toss aside for what Ryan wanted to do, and that feeds into what you said. I mean, I feel like if you're going to do it this way, you kind of need to have a Bible. This is the story we're telling. This is who Rey is. This is who everybody is. And these are the beats this film needs to hit. So there's been Colin Trevorrow, theoretically at the time, comes in and picks up the reins for the next one. This is what he needs to do.
Yep.
And that didn't happen. Obviously, they just gave free rein to Ryan. In a way, that's quite impressive. But then you end up with a thing like this, and you just ignore the last one. And then JJ comes along with the next one and says, just ignore everything that Ryan did. I'm going to set it back to the film that I made. And you're like, what the fuck? And this film looks a lot better when you see the third one. The Rise of Skywalker, or whatever it's called, is just hilariously awful.
Gross. I went back after watching this. I went back and I watched The Rise of Skywalker, and it is canonically bad, objectively bad in every regard. But we are talking about The Last Jedi.
So I think you can't separate them in the sense that, I really didn't like this when it came out a lot. I like it a lot more now after having seen what came after it. You're like, okay, well, it's not perfect, but so that's my first problem, is it ignores what happened before. What I do like about this is I think the performances yet again are on point. For what they're given to do, the film works well. Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, the new cast are all good. Oscar Isaac in particular, I think, is very good in this as the young hothead.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill gives probably his best on-screen performance, not animated, for 40 years. He's actually, watching it back again, I think he's incredible as Luke Skywalker in this film. I don't like what they did with him in this film, in his character, but given what he was to work with, he was amazing, as he tends to be. He's in incredible form. Adam Driver gets stronger every one of these films. He started interesting in the first one. He's the only thing keeping the third one remotely interesting as Kylo. He's an incredible actor. And as I mentioned earlier, Laura Dern, I think, is fantastic as Admiral Holdo. Controversial character with the men's rights people. And I think I overlooked Benicio del Toro's performance the first time around as well. I actually quite enjoyed him in this.
I enjoy him in pretty much any movie that he's in, but I also see, there's the legend that goes along with him and the choices that he made with his character, from brief mention already, The Usual Suspects, where he said to Bryan Singer, "Nothing I say actually adds value to anything here, so why don't I just mumble it?" And that made for an interesting, compelling, unusual character, and the relationship that he had, this established set up with the Baldwin boy, it worked well. And similarly here, his character, the whole Canto Bight sequence is a big social message that should not really, it doesn't fit into this Star Wars movie of, warmongers are bad and they're obviously on both sides, blah 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 blah, and let's have the big weird space horse race thing going on as well. Mess. But his character and the kind of flip-flop of him was kind of fun. I I had a weird scenario where I dreamed, or I could have sworn that in the movie, after he sells them out, he just gets shot. I had this dream where sort of like Brendan Gleeson's son, Donham Gleeson, is it? Is it Don?
Donald Gleason
Yeah,
from Harry Potter.
yeah.
Ron Weasley.
I felt like there was a scenario where he had pulled out this kind of crate of money or whatever, gave it to him. It's like, well, now that we've confirmed it, why should we keep you alive? Boom, and just shoots him. But that didn't happen. That would have been cool.
It would have
But
been
that didn't
really
happen.
interesting, and it would have worked because one of my problems. It's not a problem with this film, but when you stop and think about it, is he's not in the third film. His
No.
character just disappears from the trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, why would you set him up to double cross the what do they call themselves now, the rebels or the alliance? I don't know.
The Alliance, yeah, the Rebel Alliance.
I don't know. Are they still a rebel alliance? A rebellion? I don't know.
Yeah.
The rebels. Cool. Okay. He double crosses them. I would have thought then he would be at some point, some payoff for that would be in the third
Yeah.
film. They
Yeah.
catch up with a la Boba Fett in
Mhm.
Return of the Jedi. He gets eaten by the Sarlacc. I mean,
Yeah.
but JJ just ignored it. We go, fuck it, I'm not
Yeah.
touching anything that Ryan did.
And interestingly, in the third, in the Rise of Skywalker, there's the great sequence. It's God bless Richard E. Grant for when when Donham Gleeson's kind of spouting on about something. Like, oh, they attacked me. It's like, oh, very good. Turns around and just shoots him dead. It's like, we found the mole. Excellent.
I love
Great.
Richard E. Grant. He's up there with Sam Rockwell. It's one of my favorite actors of all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So I think there were some things I was a bit hard on in those areas, like especially Benicio del Toro, Laura Dern's Alvin Holdo, and Luke Skywalker's performance. Even the toss the lightsaber over his head, which was originally, I'm like, what the fuck? Kind of worked a little better for me second time around. There's still a lot that I don't think they got right in this film. I think there was a lot of good ideas in here, but I think he needed a firmer hand on the shoulder to go, a George Lucas, a Steven Spielberg, as almost a mentor to go, the social messaging is interesting, but does it belong in a Star Wars film? The entire Canto Bite sequence, I know you and I had this conversation a million times. That film, it's 2.5 hours long. It needs 20, 25 minutes cut out of it. That needed to be severely cut down. That doesn't belong. The Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia, Mary Poppins moment.
Yeah.
I just remember laughing in the cinema going, that looks ridiculous. Yes, I know the insinuation is that she's a Jedi as well. And maybe she's had some training in between Jedi and now that we don't know about. They could have covered that in 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. And then you're like, okay, well, obviously she can do that then, right? Like, but they didn't do any of that. She just does it. And then it looks silly. The Force Skype, or should we say update that, the Force Zoom ability that everybody has now in this film, but nobody's ever had before. This is one of my problems with these films. The Force can now do whatever it needs to do to get the story over the line. I'm like, why has no one done that before?
Yeah.
But now they can.
But you haven't read certain cherry-picked canon things, Travis.
Yeah, obviously, if you have to read the book to get the film. And one of my massive complaints about this is how they treat Finn. John Boyega, I think, was probably, along with Ray, the star of the first one.
Yep.
He is not the star. He gets relegated to a boring-ass B story with
Rose
Tico, Kelly Marie Tran, who, her credit, does the best with a very poorly written role. And then, that ends in a really ugly way for me. Like, I mean, I kind of like the idea of Finn sacrificing himself for his friends to take out the cannon at the end, but he doesn't. And then there's the kiss at the end. And again, in the third film, she's hardly in it because everybody hated that character. And you've dedicated a giant chunk of screen time to a character that people hate. And I mean, it's really done John Boyega dirty for me. Like, he was fantastic. It was one of my highlights about the first film was a relationship between he and Ray. In it was kind of, I mean, there was obviously the angle of will they, won't they? But it turned out being actually almost a brother-sister kind of relationship, a little bit like Luke and Leia without the kissing.
But the thing with that scenario, one, I think, especially considering what Rian Johnson was, his mandate for this was show them something different, and in some areas he succeeded. In other areas he went too far off. It was unfamiliar territory for people who are very protective of the Star Wars brand. But then I agree with you. Finn should have died. He should have just gone in and done it. That would have been one hell of a statement, and it would have broken the expectation of the trilogy. It's like, oh yeah, we've got this core group that doesn't change throughout all three. I'm like, wait, you're actually killing one off? You're not just putting him
And
into carbonite?
you're not just killing off the old folks, right? Like we killed off Han in the first one, which was an interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of their new stars, like the young characters, and
Yeah.
that means anyone can cop it, right? Like
Yeah,
stakes.
that's early Game of Thrones. Don't get your hopes up for this character surviving. That would have kept you very interested. And then in the third one, there's a weird scenario where they're in the middle of this desert planet and they're trying to find the MacGuffin to find the Sith planet. And as they're just sinking under the quicksand, Finn just like, there was something never got to tell you, and then disappeared. And then she says, "Oh, what were you going to say?" It's like, "Oh, I'll tell you later." And they never get back to it. I'm like, oh, okay. And it just when you kind of go back and you see them all, it just kind of has ramifications on stuff that came before it and stuff that came after it. All of those movies and everything, it resonates somehow in a way that when you go back and you watch it, you go, oh yeah, they really didn't treat Finn right in the second one, and they especially didn't treat him right in the third.
They weren't interested in him anymore. The relationship between him and Poe was fantastic as well, and they basically that gets ignored. Like when you got two characters on screen who have that kind of chemistry together, don't you want to see it's like separating Han and Chewie at the start of Empire and not bringing them back together till the last 5 minutes. You want Han and Chewie on screen together, you know?
Yes.
Like
thank you.
These guys. I'm sorry. That actually might come off as me comparing John to the wrong of those two characters. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying he and Poe have fantastic chemistry, and I loved seeing them bounce off each other.
Mm-hmm.
And him being, as I said, relegated to a completely irrelevant subplot.
Yeah.
I found very annoying.
Yeah.
And just some of the other stuff in there is just really silly. Like the first scene doesn't make any sense to me.
Space bombers.
The space bombers. Why are they dropping gravity bombs? I think at some point someone said, "Oh, if you read the book, they're actually magnetic," and you're like, "That's not on the screen."
And the other element to that is what? Okay, so they're magnetic, which, but everything else has been. Why were the bombers going so slow?
Are they not also familiar? They've got spaceships. Why are they familiar with the idea of missiles?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not supposed to be thinking this, but the scene makes no sense. So it looks like, why is this happening? Why do they what? Why are they?
The only reason why is to cause a huge loss to further the hothead of Poe.
It happens so the movie can happen, but
that is it, and it's painfully obvious that is why. It is not story. It is they try and induct story into it with Rose's sister and the medallion thing that has a moment. It's otherwise it's like, all right, you could have done almost anything better.
Seriously. I'll give you my last major complaint about this, or two, if I can. I guess it didn't happen in the first one, so I guess it's maybe more related to that. But like, how do you get all four main stars back and not get them on screen at one point in time? How does Luke, Han, Chewie, and Leia not share a scene in this trilogy?
Yeah,
that's criminal. So fair enough, that happened in the last one. We can't do that.
Yeah,
Luke doesn't share a scene with Carrie Fisher. How do you not do that? in this. He doesn't share a scene with he has Chewie, sort of. I guess that's something, but
He has a moment with Chewie, and there is a moment with Luke and Leia where he gives her the golden dice.
I must have missed that. I must have been watching that bit. But I mean,
That's just before he steps out.
The ghost. Yeah, but my main complaint here is the ghost Jedi thing when he force zooms himself onto the fake Hoth planet to distract, Adam Driver and give the rebels a chance to escape. And I'm like, wouldn't it? I know people kind of like this scene, and it is kind of badass, but I'm like, wouldn't it have been even more badass if he was actually there and actually went head to head with Kylo? Like Kylo, I mean, we never got to see Luke be a proper Jedi. He was still in training at the end of Return of a Jedi. He kind of is still the student and just a plucky young student who managed to defeat Vader and the Empress. But there's that one scene in The Mandalorian where he just goes fucking nuts, and just kills everybody on that one Imperial ship. And you're like, oh, now that's what I want to see from my Luke Skywalker. And just seeing him actually go head to head proper with Kylo and lose, he has to do, would have been super cool. As opposed, I guys felt like he's force projecting himself and then he just disappears on the planet he was on. I'm like, I don't know. Like, the force isn't real, but again, it's like you're just telling me you can do whatever you need it to do, and it's like it just doesn't click with everything else we've been told about it to date. And I don't know. It just didn't. It felt like a cop-out ending to me, even though it was a pretty cool scene. It could have been cooler.
I tend to agree with you, but I'm not as chastising to you as to that scene as you seem to be. The fucking visual of it, just lone guy just walking through that gaping hole in the shell and just standing there. That's fucking badass.
The shoulder brush off was fun. I'll give him that.
Everything about it was awesome, and even this, like, where it cut to Kylo Ren just going more, and just screaming at him. It's like, okay, that's cool. I love what they're doing with this. They're really building this motherfucker up. This is awesome. And I loved, even though there is no reason for it, but the salt and then the red, and it's sort of like, oh, you could have seen that it was force projected because he wasn't leaving any marks. That was a kind of nice little nod, akin to when you go back and you watch Lord of the Rings and Legolas is walking on top of the snow. He's not buried in it. So that's a nice little visual add. And it's like, that's cool. And I did appreciate the literal sunsetting of Luke Skywalker. I wish that they had chosen to not kill him off. It would have been, they could have just left it nebulous and just watched him as there's like that floating, and John Williams' awesome music is there, and then he just drops. And then we don't go back to fucking Luke Skywalker. And then you could have left him to come back however you wanted in the third one as the Force Ghost, or bring him fucking back. You could have just written him out in that regard and just left everyone going, oh, I think he's alive. No, I think he's dead. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It would have been cool. It would have been better than seeing finality. Let your imagination fill in the gaps, ladies and gentlemen. That's the big thing.
Can I give some props here to things I think he did do well, though?
Absolutely.
I've said it before. If people who've been listening when we actually probably reviewed it for the first time years ago might remember this, but the Holdo, what became known as the Holdo maneuver, was one of the most genius things I've seen in the Star Wars film, period. It was amazing. Her ramming her ship into the dreadnoughts and saving the fleet is amazing. And I'm like, and the fact that the sound design of that scene, of just the silence in space,
absolutely
perfect, amazing scene. And it's things like that make me go, he had some incredible ideas here. It's a shame it just didn't quite convalesce into a better product. But so when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh, okay, we are dealing with a serious talent here in terms of Ryan
Yeah.
Johnson. You
Yeah.
don't do that by accident.
No.
Going back to Canto Bite, which I said they shouldn't have had, but seeing that they did do it, the insinuation, I liked the insinuation that Ryan put in the film that it didn't matter who you were, you could still be a Force user or a potential Jedi. You didn't have to be on a particular bloodline. And
Yeah.
that's actually a very political message if you think about it. That's actually a very, I would say, a socialist message from someone. I don't know what his political leanings are, but the idea that it doesn't matter who your parents are or what your family is, your natural ability can make you whatever you want to be. And that maybe that was what he was going for the whole idea of, Rey isn't anybody. Her parents were junk
I
dealers.
think he was. I think
And
he was, because to me, that is more poignant than and more believable than fucking Palpatine having children. He is not interested in any of that. Everything that we have ever been shown on screen, he has been single bloody minded on one thing. And so like, oh yeah, go home. It's like, oh hey honey, yeah, oh what a day at the office. No, come on. He
no,
he
you're
was a
right.
loner. He didn't trust fucking anyone.
And the scene at the end of this where the kid walks out the door and just holds his hand and the broom pops up into his hand, I'm like, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful final scene in that film, and it really reinforced that message that he's been
Yes.
trying to give us all the way through. Is it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, you can be anything, which is a very uplifting message in a way, and a really nice way to leave leave the film. But
Yeah.
obviously, J.J. Abrams feels incredibly differently about that because that was we just ignored that scene. That scene led to nothing.
Nope.
And we reversed his, that Rey, oh, I was lying, and actually, no, you are actually related to somebody who's a famous Force user. And you're like, oh, okay, that was
Yeah.
a bit boring. I mean, once you set the path, you kind of have to stick to it.
Mm.
But I thought that was really done. Those two scenes in particular really were done super nicely, and it did make the film stand out. I think I failed to recognize when I first saw it how good those two things were.
My one that I liked, and at the same time, because of what's happened in Ahsoka, don't like, because there is literally no continuity in something that is continuity heavy, is the fact that, it was quite a cool concept. I don't think it was particularly well executed, of literal chase sequence in space because fuel is a finite thing. That was cool. That was a clever concept of being able to have that chase sequence. I don't think it entirely worked. I did like the way that it kind of did. He tried to crack it up each time, and the fact that Holdo did have a plan of sorts to go on. But then in Ahsoka, Grand Admiral Thrawn has been away for years and years and years and years and years with a big, Star Destroyer, and it's still fuel running perfectly fine. It's not, no degradation to it or anything like that. What fuel are they using? I want to know. That'd be handy.
The other problem with the chase sequence for me was, well, I tried to be fair about this. I've never mentioned fuel once up till now.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's a bit of a new thing, but I guess fair enough. They got to run on something.
Mm.
Second thing is my understanding, I am not a physics major, but once a ship is going at a certain speed in space, it will continue to go at that speed forever until something stops it from going that speed. So the fact that they would run out of fuel would not slow them down.
Don't give me any of your hokum pokum science fiction stuff, Travis. Sorry.
Look, I could, if I'm wrong,
When I'm in my car, if I want to keep it going forwards, I've got to keep my foot on the gas.
And I think the conditions on Earth are comparable to those in space.
Unless it's John Wick France.
But I found myself going, I was watching it going, not this time, the first time, wouldn't they just keep going?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But you're right. It was an interesting idea that, again, a lot of his films, interesting ideas, didn't quite come together.
Yeah.
The degree of difficulty of what he was trying to do here was significantly higher than what had happened before and after.
Mm-hmm.
But, so props to Ryan Johnson for that. I guess we're never going to see that Star Wars trilogy he was going to make. I think that's off the table now.
God only knows. No one knows what's actually going on over there. Not even them. But honestly, everything that Star Wars has produced in those 6 years, like we said at the start, has been middling at best. The Mandalorian started off very strong with the first season. Second season was good. Third season, okay, whatever. Boba Fett, they got bored of the character Boba Fett in the finale. That's not a good sign. And Ahsoka, there's elements of it that are kind of good, but at the same time, it's like, okay, what are you actually trying to do here? Are you trying to make up for the shit that was young Anakin Skywalker, and you're trying to make that valuable now by retconning and force correcting the narrative? Or are you trying to actually just tell a story about a character that's like a Ronin Jedi, which is a cool concept? And the things that people tell me about the character of Ahsoka is like, cool, tell me that Oh, you're not going to tell me that story. You're going to tell me a story about everyone else around her. Okay.
I've not heard good things. I haven't watched Ahsoka, but I've not heard good things about it. So I think I've come to a point, a bit like you have with a lot of this stuff, is they're not making this for me anymore.
Yeah.
These are characters from the Rebels TV show, so it's for kids who grew up watching that, and I didn't. So whatevs.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to ask you. You got the keys now, technically.
Yeah.
I am not going to. You can pick one if you want, but I mean, we're probably better to keep people waiting on guessing.
We will keep people waiting, honestly. But one of the delights of this show, of this movie, is that there are so many great paths that we can go down.
You're no shortage of big people, big stars in this film. There's lots of different options.
And certainly one of the ones that was high on my list of the next one would be Ex Machina with Oscar Isaac and Don Gleason.
That's a good film. I enjoyed that one very much when I saw that.
Absolutely.
Should we move from the sublime to the ridiculous?
Which one?
Well, I'm talking about the true ridiculous, which is the 1973 strangely influential Doll Squad, because I think this one, I don't know how you went with this one, but this is going to be a short segment, this one, because
it is.
But Doll Squad was released in 1973. I had trouble finding an exact release from September. So I picked one that just came out that year, and that was this, and that's what the wheel told us to watch. Squad of beautiful government agents tries to catch saboteurs. Sabotage. And apparently, why I said this film is strangely influential, it's speculated that Aaron Spelling got the idea for Charlie's Angels after attending the premiere. Now, I was originally, is this a ripoff? But it's not. It apparently inspired Charlie's Angels.
Hey, they're different words.
Quentin Tarantino has said that the film was a strong influence for the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad and Kill Bill. And I also have to imagine he also be an influence for Fox Force 5.
Yeah.
And Sissy Spacek apparently auditioned for a role as one of the dolls, who, of course, was an Academy Award winner, if I'm not mistaken. Very well-known actor. You got to worry about your career path if you didn't get the job as one of the dolls, considering the level of talent on display in this. And there's a link to Star Wars. Sissy Spacek was the original choice to play Princess Leia, of course. That is where the interesting things about this film end.
Yes.
This is a very, very, very low budget 1970s. It almost
apparently the budget was about $276,000.
I don't know what a normal budget was back then, but that's not. Honestly, I feel like that's not on the screen.
No. And one of the trivia bits is that the director had to sell his Cadillac to finance the movie. It's like, what, really? Oh, what did you spend it on? Because this almost feels like watching this movie. It kind of feels a little bit like an Edward D. Wood Jr. movie. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of stock footage of a spaceship at Cape Canaveral taking off, and it's like, yes, we've got long looks across the water, and oh yes, a boat going out that absolutely is the one that the Doll Squad is on. Yes, 100%. No,
So in terms of plot, there
there is
is
one.
a sort of there is a terrorist or something who is blowing up spaceships, so rockets for somehow
The
sabotaging and
things
blowing
people
them up
do.
for reasons. And the guy who owns the rockets, I guess, and another dude who obviously seems like works for the CIA or something like that. Decide put it into a situation into a computer, and the computer nominates their best option to take down the saboteurs and save a space program or whatever. And it
Yeah,
turns out the Doll Squad is that what the computer spits out as the best option.
yeah.
The Doll Squad is, as it says, a group of beautiful government agents, and I think I'm sorry, I'm going to be a bit mean here, but beautiful is a very strong term. They look like a bunch of retired strippers.
Yeah.
And the leader is Sabrina Kincaid, played by Francine York.
Let's be
Uh,
honest here. Sabrina Kincaid is a cool name.
yes.
Cool name.
I was going to say, but she was 36, 37 when this film came out. So, it's not old, but she's a
No,
strong
it's not
30.
old. We're not old. Shut up.
But I don't know. She looks every bit of it and a bit more. And sorry, that's a really mean thing to say, but I'm like, surely if you're going to make this film, you're going to make a film that's supposed to be, about beautiful young government agents. You would hire, beautiful women to be in it. But they haven't really done that.
No.
Especially
What I'm
considering,
curious about is, you know, the sequence where she goes and she's recruiting the women for the
yeah,
Doll Squad. She goes to the karate place, and the woman that she's talking to has got that like grey hair that just it looks like a magpie is nested in there.
it is interesting choices. And I was
It's
going to
like,
say, this film was repackaged and redistributed in the 80s under the name Seduce and Destroy. Um,
yeah,
I don't know. If you're going to try and make it sound soft porny, maybe hire some good looking people. Notice also, I strongly recommend having a look at the IMDb page, because it looks like it might have got a re-release at some point, and they've created a poster for it that looks exactly like the Charlie's Angels posters from the early 2000s. Before Charlie's Angels, there was the Doll Squad.
yeah,
But so that's a minor complaint, but you are right that this film, this guy has got no idea about how to make a film. What this film made me think of while I was watching it, apart from, was how much I wish I was dead right now. Um, that's it's really that bad. It's not even so bad as good. It made me think like, it made me feel like I was watching Mystery Science Theater 3000,
yeah.
right?
This
And that
would have been perfect for
for that,
Mystery
because I was
Science.
like, there's so many these sort of shots that just don't make any sense. It was like, there's a scene towards the end where they're like raiding a compound where the bad guy is, and there's all sorts of very, average actors playing soldiers or guards riding around on station wagons, and they look like they're holding on for dear life, because it's quite obviously just a station wagon with a tray down the back, and they're like, and not
Yeah,
supposed. They probably wouldn't get past today, but I'm like, it would spend like 2 minutes just with shots of these guys riding around in the desert. I'm like, what is this shot supposed to tell me? I understand it. I get it. There are guards there, right?
yeah.
Um, the
It
acting is awful.
abhorrent.
Awful. These women can't act. The
No.
story makes no sense. As you mentioned earlier, she goes out and hires a couple of dolls to start with, only for them to be killed 2 minutes later, like quite brutally too.
Yeah.
You're like, why even introduce me to these people if they just, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, and then you've got sort of like Sabrina is there and she meets the guy that killed one of them before, and he brings out sort of like evidence to kind of say, oh yes, we've killed your two associates already, and then the lighter that's a flamethrower, um where are the rest of the gadgets that these people have?
That was their budget. They sorted their budget with that,
Yeah,
and that's it. It's like, Oh my lord! This is yeah. It's interesting. The Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, the Last Jedi. I get them mixed up.
Yeah.
Was an hour longer than this, and I didn't like it very much.
Yeah.
I still don't like it very much.
Yeah.
But it felt like a goddamn breeze compared to this 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Like this is a long 90 minutes. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that bad.
Yeah.
So
The,
oh, my
it,
friend Ryan's watching on Facebook. He says you can watch this on YouTube. You can watch the entire thing on YouTube. I
yes.
would absolutely encourage you not to pay for it. It's that bad. It's possibly the worst thing I've inflicted on this podcast since Death Machine.
Ooh. At least with Death Machine, the sets looked like they had money spent on them. This it really doesn't. I mean, like what's his name? Eamon O'Reilly, the main bad guy who is a former agent, and apparently we find out later on that him and Sabrina had a relationship at some point, and it like the whole sequence at the end where he's captured her and he's saying like, "Oh, how would you kill me?" And every time they cut to him, there's literally like a gladiator's sword right on the wall. It's like, subtlety. Have you looked up what this word means? Because you're not doing it. You're just not. It was, so much of it just like it was worse than a student film.
It really. Can I give you some context about how bad this film looks? So a few weeks ago, or maybe 2 shows ago, we watched American Graffiti. I
Yeah.
think 2 or 3. American Graffiti was the 3rd highest grossing film of 1973. That was made on a budget of $777,000, which is about 2.5, 3 times this film's budget.
Mm-hmm.
That film looks good. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, in fairness, there weren't a lot happening. It was just people driving around, but like that looked like an actual film, right?
Yes, it did.
As opposed to
had
this.
good editing.
So I'm just looking at some other films. So The Sting was the second highest grossing film of that year. It was made for $5.5 million. The Exorcist was the highest grossing film of that year. It was made for $12 million.
Mm-hmm.
So in fairness, $260,000 isn't a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how people with talent were making films, low budget films that were a lot better than this, for not a whole lot more than that. So this is catastrophically terrible, and I feel like I owe everyone an apology who might have engaged in this, because it was, apart from those interesting little snippets, it's terrible.
This is not a good movie, and it's not even that's a good idea. Like I will pay it if this was the kind of the seed that germinated to bring about the evolution and the generation of female-led action stars. Cool. That was an important step to take in like equality and cinematics. But it's hard to look back on it and just like, oh yeah, we had to go through that to get to where we are now. But what we went through was definitely not good. It was better than what was before, but it's still not good. Like I love the idea that there's a computer that just goes, all right, yes, think of all these different independent agencies that we've got, and this one is absolutely going to fit. But why? Why do the Doll Squad fit this particular mission? She recruits one person who's dancing in front of a band. I presume that she's actually part of the sort of like the entertainment there, and not just some random drunk person that's dancing belly dancer style. But none of them seem to be displaying any particular skill set that's like, oh yes, you're going to be able to break into their security, you're going to be our demolitions expert or anything like that. No, there's nothing like.
Remember, Fox Force 5 was like the French girl, especially with sex, and
Yeah,
her specialty, Uma Thurman's specialty was knives, and there was explosives girl.
yeah,
It's interesting when you take an idea like that and filter it through someone who's got actual talent. It could have been a fun movie.
yeah.
So
I feel like this, if Tarantino had just kind of thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to have fun rather than try and maintain my career success, I feel like he would, at some point in his future, he would go, yeah, I'm going to remake the Doll Squad, and he'd probably be able to make something good.
well,
This is not.
it would have a budget at least, and even at his worst to date, he hasn't made anything this awful. Ted V. Nichols is the director, by the way, who passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
If you go through his films that he was responsible for, I can't see there's many of them over a rating on IMDb of 3 or 4. There's 1 or 2 that creeps over that he
But you've
produced.
got to respect that moustache.
And a man who corrected something called Blood Orgy of the She Devils. I mean, it's got a 3.1, so it's probably no good. But like that title. And my friend Ryan, who's watching on Facebook, says he's had a friend who watched a new horror film called Slaughterhouse, which is apparently the worst film his friend has ever seen. So I don't even know if that's come out in Australia or if it's going to come out in Australia. But apparently, if you see that kicking around on a streaming service somewhere, unless you're in the mood for something terrible, I'd probably give it a miss then. But
I think I still, if I want to watch a trashy horror movie, I still want to watch Velocipasta. That's still number 1 for me.
Ryan's searching for a worst film he's ever seen is Norbit, which I didn't see, but I do agree, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, hard work. I would say, feel free to jump on and watch us on the Twitch stream or the YouTubes.
Yes.
If we ever when we come back, jump on and watch on the Twitch screen. Stay tuned to the socials to know when that's going to happen. Then you can jump in and we can actually get some feedback, and I love it. It's
yeah, absolutely.
I think we wash that out of our mouth a little bit now and move on to something a little bit more contemporary.
Yes.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was our newish film of the week. It's out on streaming now if you want to see it. It came out in August at cinemas. So it's a quick turnaround onto streaming. The film follows the Turtle Brothers as they work to earn the love of New York City while facing down an army of mutants. This is written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. So the guys who brought you Pineapple Express and The Interview, amongst other things. Directed by Jeff Rowe and Kyla Spears, who I think are best known for things like Disenchantment, Gravity Falls. Which I think you liked Disenchantment.
I like Gravity Falls for sure. Disenchantment, I kind of dropped off a little bit, but it was all right.
They've got a solid background in animation.
Yeah.
Stars. We actually have actual teenagers voicing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. None of whom I'm instantly familiar with, so I'll ignore them for now. But just because they're not good, I just don't think you're going to know the names. But there is a pretty big cast in here of other voice actors. Maya Rudolph plays one of the villains. John Cena plays Rocksteady. Seth Rogen's voicing Bebop. Rose Byrne, the Australian actor, playing Leatherhead. The incomparable Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman. Jackie Chan turns up as Splinter. Paul Rudd, Ice Cube, Post Malone. Mr. Beast, if you are a YouTube person, he is the most watched YouTuber in the world, I think. So it's a big cast of you go, that voice sounds familiar. This film is very heavily influenced, in my opinion, by the Spider-Verse films from Sony. It has that vibe for me.
Especially that kind of almost like handcrafted animation look with the squiggling of pencils for explosions and things like that. This is it. I do love the time that we are living in for animation because people are getting weird with their animation, and that's just delicious and so good for variety. If everyone just went, okay, you know what, we're all gonna just do everything Pixar, Disney, how fucking boring would that be? It would be the same as if everyone did Studio Ghibli style animation. It'd be beautiful, much like the Disney Pixar stuff, but having the same thing would be boring as sin. this, Into the Spider-Verse, doing different things to try to inform on the story at the very least. They're using it as part of the narrative, which is the key element.
This film, for me, is, I've got to be honest, I went into this being a bit, this is a kid's film.
Mm-hmm.
Kids film, I don't really want to watch a kid's film.
Mm.
I think it is aimed at a young audience,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this is actually one of the best films I've seen this year. I think I've seen a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film since the last CGI Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which came out about 2008. It was just called TMNT.
Oh yeah.
Everyone forgets about that one. But I really, really dug it. I think the four main cast members who play the Turtles, Micah Abbey as Donatello, Shamon Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Bradley Noon as Raphael, have this amazing chemistry together. And I was not surprised to find out that apparently they filmed a lot of their scenes, they recorded a lot of their stuff together.
Yeah.
They would actually get all these people together in an actual voiceover booth rather than recording everyone's bits separately and then mixing. I don't know. It felt like they had that kind of live energy to me, and kind of talking over each other, and their way of speaking to each other felt authentic to me.
Yes.
I don't spend a lot of the time around Zoomers, but like, I suspect that's what they sound like.
With you can't edit the instant improv and act and react that you get with this. It's one of the reasons why the voice work in the Fantastic Mr. Fox was great, because they did it live with everyone involved, and they were able to do those momentary improv bits and pick up a line just that nanosecond quicker, so that it just felt organic compared to being edited. I'm not surprised that they did that, because it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everyone knows you got the four of them and they're brothers, and they set this movie up so much that they have to have this extremely close bond. We have to believe that. And that's part of the story. That again, they're using their tools to tell the story correctly.
So that really sets the film up, because if you've got that authentic feel from these guys, that you're really watching a bunch of teenagers in a way, and then it turns into a coming of age film, really.
Yeah.
I love the cultural references. The fact that they go to the outdoor movies and watch
Ferris Bueller,
which is, of course, the granddaddy of one of the great coming of age stories, and that they reference all that kind of thing. It feels authentic. It feels grounded in this real world. Because it's an incredibly fantastical story about mutants. And then their villain is actually kind of interesting. The villain is Superfly, voiced by Ice Cube, who is a brilliant voice casting, by the way, like brilliant. And his rogues gallery of mutants, including Mondo Gecko, voiced by Paul Rudd, is perfect. Ray Fillet, sorry. Fillet joke. Post Malone, who I am aware exists. Genghis Frog, Spider, and I'm forgetting one here. Leatherhead by Rose Byrne, which is fun. And of course, Rebop and Rocksteady, John Cena, and Seth Rogen. But the initial meeting isn't just like, "Hey, you're the bad guy. We're gonna kill you," and da 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 da. It's like there's actually a scene where they're like, "Well, these guys actually have quite a bit in common with the bad guy," and the bad guy almost seems mildly sympathetic at points in time. You don't need to be super sympathetic, but it's certainly a lot more complex and well written than a lot of kids, young people's content you come across, and adult content for that matter. It's Superfly is a great bad guy. I really enjoyed the way though that the Rogues Gallery just didn't become almost like a video game, right? You got a boss battle against sub bosses before you go up against the main boss, right? You got to be like in the video game. I don't know if you ever played the arcade game.
Streets of Rage rules.
Or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, which is one of my favorites. You got to beat Bebop and then Rocksteady and then Shredder and then Krang. It doesn't play out that way. It's a wonderful film, really, really fun. And if I can give a very self-indulgent shout out there, one of the first things I noticed about the film while I was watching it yesterday was the music.
Yeah.
And I'm not lying. I swear to God, and people must think I'm bullshitting. I'm not lying. I found myself going, what an interesting score. You know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you've ever heard of a group called Tangerine Dream.
Ding 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 ding. Yes, is it anything to do with Trent Reznor and
Well,
Atticus
that's
Ross?
it. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross scored the film. I mean, it is, yes, and it is for anybody who knows me knows that like Nine Inch Nails are probably my favorite band, and I'm a bit obsessed. But I had completely forgotten that he'd voiced. I remember mentioning this to Michelle a few weeks ago and going, "Mutant? What the fuck?" And I'd completely forgotten.
Yeah.
It completely left my brain. I swear to God, I'd
Mm-hmm.
completely forgotten until I heard the sound, and I'm like, I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Miracle Mile that came out in the 80s, has Anthony Edwards in it. It's a nuclear war film. It's really good, actually. Anyway, the score to that was done by a synth pop group called Tangerine Dream. And early in this film, I'm like, this sounds a lot like that kind of thing, a lot like that score they did for that film. Very ethereal and early 80s synthy,
Yeah.
which is a big part of, I think, Trent's influences, where he sort of started with that kind of music. And I'm like, oh, that's right. This is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross again. And I swear to God, it happens every time. I'll see a film and he'll be like, fuck, the music in this is good. And then I'll be like, oh, this is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross again. So and it sounds like bullshit, but I swear to God, there are two independent thoughts that happen. The thought this is good, and then a realization that it's been done by one of my favorite artists. And I think the score and the soundtrack in general on this is sick. I don't know if you caught the Vanilla Ice reference in there, but I
Yes,
sure did.
I definitely did. This movie is an absolute love letter to the 80s culture and to the birth of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and everything that. This is counter programming for the Michael Bay produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, in that they are literally teenagers. They have the same wants and desires, and there's this simple want of being able to go to high school and awkwardness talking to girls. I liked the fact that they brought in a young April O'Neil, and everything about it. It was just like, no, you know what, we're going to do this, because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons, they get really dark, and by the end of this, in the fight sequences against Superfly, or mutated Superfly, the turtles get beaten to shit.
Well, this is them as they're starting out. This is this is an origin story, right? This is a reboot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe, and I mean, everything's their own universe now, isn't it? I mean, I would give you a heads up if you do watch this film. Don't turn it off at the end. There is a mid-credit scene which gives a hint at what a potential sequel might look like if it gets made. Which I have no idea how well this film did, so I can't say. The fact it went to streaming so quickly probably doesn't bode well. Yeah, but it really should. This is, I'm not going over to, I would say this is probably in one of the top 5 films I've seen this year. I adored this, the animation, the score, obviously, the actual soundtrack was good. I mean, the fact that there's a scene where they're all singing "What's Up" by 4 Non Blondes, A, very, very funny. Then B, to transition from that into an action sequence where they use the version of "What's Up" by 4 Non Blondes from the famous He-Man internet meme. If you don't know it, type He-Man "What's Up." You will enjoy it. I guarantee it. That they use. I was pissing myself. I was like, this is fucking good. These people, they're exactly what they're doing. And I think if you've got kids of a certain age, I'm guessing, I don't know, I don't have kids, so I don't know exactly how old they have to. I'm guessing 10, 11. What do you think? You deal with children a little bit more commonly than me. 11, 12?
Yeah, this is kid friendly for sure. Yeah.
There's no swearing. There's
No.
not a massive amount of violence. Obviously, they're Ninja Turtles, so there's
Yeah.
fights, but like there's not like blood loss or anything like that. There's no sexual activity to be concerned about there. And I would say 9, 10, 11, 12 would be kind of your time frame for, and I think they'll
Yeah.
really. This is like Pixar at their best. This is a big statement, but like you remember when Pixar used to make films that would be the kids would love it because it's bright, it's colorful, it's fun,
Hmm.
and it'd be full of references that only the adults are going to get.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of film I think we're looking at here, and I think this is a triumph.
I didn't like it as much as you did, but I still liked it a lot. I just felt like it was a little too pandering to.
You take that back.
I just felt like it was pandering a little bit too much to everything that came before. I respected it, but it was just too much. It was just too much. They could have taken like 20% of the sort of cultural references out and just gone, okay, let's streamline this. It was an hour and 46 minutes, I think.
Hour 39. So this
39.
is actually the same length, I think, as the Doll Squad. So.
Yep, this definitely went quicker than the Doll Squad.
So FYI, it took about 180 million globally.
Mm-hmm. On a 76 million budget.
That's okay.
It's not bad. Not bad. I think it's enough to warrant a sequel at some point. But more than anything, I found the story a little bit kind of boring. But it was entertaining in the fact that it did actually try to build relatability between the heroes and the villain. So often it's just like, oh no, they have to be different. And it's not often that you get scenarios like Black Panther, where you had that great kind of coming together of the two, Killmonger and Black Panther, at the end, where Black Panther did change his ways because the bad guys, he actually made a lot of sense, and you can learn from the bad guys, and I respect that. And that's about connection between the characters and not just keeping them apart because they have to confront. That's not the only option. What I did like is the animation, though. The animation was really stunning.
It looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks good. It plays well to the source material, like I said at the start. It captures and is part of the character of the movie and of the kids that we are watching. It's got that vitality to it. It has a visceral nature to it. It's raw and emotional. And I do just love the fact that people are willing to try these different things, because this could have so easily been animated in the same way that TMNT was, with that kind of smooth edges and, but that's vapid when not actually part of the identity of the movie. If they're just using it because that's the quick way of getting the 3D animation to be done, and just like, oh, this way we don't have to worry about bone structure or anything like that. So like, no, you're actually putting effort into it. And the close-ups on the kids, where they even simulated kind of fingerprints on them, like it looked like they were kind of made out of kind of mold or clay or something like that. It just worked. It added that element to it. And the music, as you say, it was a character in the movie, and it inspired and informed on the kids and the action. There's a lot going on really well with this. It just wasn't. I've never been a huge Turtles fan, so it's not something that I.
You might be a little young. It was really, really started. It really hit big in when I was about 13. And so maybe you're probably 6 or 7 at that point in time. So
I still definitely like the first Turtles movie. I was and always will be a Donatello boy. Love me that purple band.
You're either a Donatello boy or you're wrong. That's what I'm saying. It's especially in the video games, that bow was the best weapon.
Oh, it was badass,
especially in the arcade game. There's a review here from Screen Crush that I think really summed it up for me.
Mm.
So many blockbusters these days are designed to comfort viewers with the familiar, giving them exactly what they expect in narcotizing doses of beloved intellectual properties. I really fucking like that line, narcotizing doses of beloved intellectual properties. While Mutant Mayhem obviously originated from the same commercial impulse, it adds a lot of novel wrinkles to the old Ninja Turtles formula. That was a good call. Don't
I think that's
expect
fair.
maybe a little bit. Maybe you can see we are a little bit off course here on this one, but I think it's high quality stuff. At
Yeah.
least it's certainly it's a good family film. I think a bit along the way the Spider-Verse films are.
Mm.
I think you could take your kids comfortably to this and not worry too much about the content, and both have a good time. I would suggest
Absolutely agree.
it's a much better film than say Super Mario Brothers from last year for me, anyway.
I mean, Super Mario Brothers was perfectly fine. It did exactly what it was setting out to do, but it wasn't doing anything more.
That was a
And
narcotizing dose of familiar IP for me. It was fine. You're right. It wasn't awful. It was
yeah,
okay. But I just think this is if you're thinking about taking your kids to something. Well, you probably won't be anymore because I don't think it's at the cinemas. But if you're going to find something to shut them up for a couple of hours, I think this is good content.
Yeah.
Should
All
we move on
right.
to the very last binge browse burn of the year?
Binge, browse, burn, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. So, what have you got, my friend? Have you got any?
Well, yes, I got a couple.
Okay.
Season 2 of Loki has landed last week.
Yes. Episode
Interestingly,
1.
episode 1. Don't know if episode 2's up yet.
I think
Might
it's.
be.
I think it's later tonight.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm sorry,
No, me
people.
neither.
I didn't love season 1 for reference. It had its moments.
Yep.
This is not good. This is particularly not good. For me, it came down to a point at the end of the episode where you had Owen Wilson, Tom Hiddleston, and Ki Hui Kwan on screen together. Three of, I think, at least two of the most charismatic actors of the last 10 years.
Yep.
And I think as somebody who everybody fucking loves, I love Ki Hui Kwan.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to see him get good work now, like see him pop up and stuff. And I was bored shitless about what was going on. I couldn't have cared less what was going on. And I found myself thinking back to something you said a while ago. I can't remember if it was about Marvel or Star Wars. Might have been Star Wars.
Disney.
You said they're not making things for me anymore. I might watch them, but it's not for me anymore. I might be misquoting you, and that I think I'm there with Marvel.
Yeah.
IGN gave us a 5 out of 10. And I was like, oh, okay. And they have been absolutely ripped to shreds online for people going, oh my God, it's so good. How can you say it's 5 out of 10? It's so good. It's like a real movie. It's amazing. Marvel's back. I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe I'll probably go back for more because, there's not much else to watch right these days.
At the moment, because of the writer's strike.
I'm curious. But so Loki finds himself lost to time and torn quite literally between past, present, and future. And I don't care.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's and honestly, there was a thing about sort of like the future of the MCU and how do you think everything's going so far? How have they handled this latest phase? And I think they have absolutely not only dropped the ball, but just dumped a pile of poo all over the ball because Secret Invasion was not good from start to finish.
Bad.
Ms. Marvel had elements of quirky. The Kamala Khan, she was quite good in the role. She was sort of like bright and effervescent, and she was obviously has a natural love for this character, but she wasn't given anything. She-Hulk was dross. And then we've got Loki, and the next big Marvel movie is The Marvels.
You're in trouble when the most interesting character in there is, to me at least, Kamala Khan, and I haven't even seen the TV show. I mean, that's like she actually looks like she could be fun to watch.
Yeah.
But it's Ryan has said on my Facebook stream here that he found it very convoluted. I think that's a good description. There's a lot of different things going on. A lot of got to get the thing to get to the thing to build the thing to go there to do the thing to beam you down to stop you from doing the other thing. And I'm like,
Yep.
it feel a bit video gamey fetch quest to you?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, it's kind of that. I mean, thinking about it as an open world RPG is a really good way of putting it. They're putting loads of content out there. None of it is particularly connected at the moment. It is what it is, but it's sort of like, oh, choose your own adventure. You want to follow this character? Okay, that's fine, but make those side quests good. If you want us to invest in them, make them good, because this is an investment of our time, and if we don't like it, we're not going to want to go on all the other things that you're doing. So treat them with respect, and they're very clearly not. It's a factory, and I've said this about Disney ad nauseum for years now. They are a factory for making billion-dollar properties. That is all that they really care about. They don't actually care about story. That is incidental, and especially considering how they treat the Writers Guild. They don't respect the craft of storytelling. They respect the craft of the money.
And I get that. Let's say every business they exist to make money. Yeah. What they need to be convinced of is creativity equals money.
Yeah.
And to date, that's where Marvel started, right? It was quite creative. The stuff that they were doing was interesting, right? We talked ad nauseum about how they reinvented the superhero film to be a genre film with superheroes in it.
Yep.
The buddy cops with superheroes being for Ragnarok, and spy film with a soldier is superheroes, and it's like, but they've run out of ideas, or they've kind of got to the point where they're not actually investing in creative artists anymore. We hear stories about, like with Black Widow a couple of years ago, where they basically took control of the film away from the director. Yeah, it's Australian director's name, who escapes me right now, and they basically said, well, we'll do the action scenes, you just do the rest of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens quite a bit with their stuff, right? So the actual creative force behind making something doesn't really control it. They kind of guide it with Marvel's heavy Disney's heavy hand on their shoulder telling them that. I just don't care about this show. Basically the first episode was bridging from the end of last season into what this season's going to be about, I guess. And every time Kang pops up on screen, I'm like, what are you going to do about that guy, huh? We haven't heard any more about those allegations now, have we, Dizzy?
It's been a while.
You decided what you're going to do? Is he Kang or is he not Kang?
Yeah.
You're in a world of fucking hurt if that guy gets locked up or found guilty of something, right? Like, so Jonathan Majors is a little problematic right now, but his face is all over this show. Sorry. So anyway, this is supposed to be short. I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. I don't think I've liked anything Marvel's done since Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy was okay.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy was all right. But yeah, it's a shell of what it was. And yeah, to a certain degree, there's going to be that point of sort of like, yes, you've reached this high, you're not going to be able to reach that. So you do something different. And maybe they are trying to do something by going more galactic and stuff. But you still have to make it relatable and actually engaging.
But the audience is there. It's got an 8.5 on IMDb. I think people really liked episode 1 of season 2. I don't know what they're seeing. I think people are just a little too easy to please.
I liked Key's character. I thought
he's so good in everything. Like, give this man the indie franchise. Seriously, like the last one was a pile of shit, so I don't think they're going to make another one anytime soon. But seriously, how are you not going? He's an Academy Award winner. People love him. He would short round takes over as indie.
He is such a passionate actor. He's got so much love and excitement. You see all the stuff of him on the red carpets and things like that. He's just bubbling with joy. And he brings that into every role that he has, this energy, and you can't help but watch him. And he's been like that since he was a kid in the Goonies and in as Short Round. He was wonderful. It's fantastic, and he showed so much depth and range and emotion in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And in here, he's got the odd quirkiness and that energy, and sort of like it just works from an audience perspective, but it doesn't
I feel like he's
quite fit with the show.
He's kind of was a little wasted in this for me.
Yeah.
He was charming and he was fun. He was closest to anything that made me want to watch more, but I don't think he was particularly well served by the material he was given. But that's Loki season 2.
Yeah.
You have time to watch television anymore, or?
I don't really have much time to watch anything anymore, but I did spend some time with some more time in Baldur's Gate 3, and I've played a little bit of the multiplayer of that, and that is really fun.
Everybody says it's great. I mean, what would you say? Well, my question for you is, it's really heavily D&D based, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not being a D&D player yet. Would you say you need to be a D&D fan to get it?
No. Especially if you played Skyrim, you've played open world games, you know the basic systems of those sorts of things. This is just a incredibly dense, rich environment of D&D characters and lore and history with an open world game on top of it. You can, it's yours to choose. But like I was saying with my analogy before, everywhere you go, you can suddenly find yourself off on this side mission doing one thing or another, and there's so much interesting stuff. And because it encourages you to experiment with, I wonder how this would work with if I combine it with this. Oh shit, I was able to actually do that. That's awesome. Okay, this is ridiculous. I love this. But then in multiplayer as well, it actually expands that even more. If you're going into a shop and someone could be having a conversation with the shop owner, another member of your party, if they're being controlled by another player, they can go around and just steal everything because the shop owner is being distracted with conversation. It works, and that's what you do, and it feels organic to play it. There is so much, and it is daunting when you look at it. It's go, oh my god, there's so many things that I can pick up, and I wonder if I can combine this with that, and how do I do this, and how do I do that? But it's just learning a system. If you have the time, this consistently rewards you.
Is it a jump in, jump out kind of game, or do I need to dedicate hours at a time?
This is how I've been jumping in and out of it, and that's how I play it. It's got the quick save, which is also wonderful because if you want to go through and do a specific style of playthrough of being able to persuade everyone, you can save and it'll come up with roll a persuasion dice. You roll it, you add all of the things on screen, and if it still fails, you can quickly reload and you can do it again, and it gives you that option to be able to do it, which is an old school go back to the save file to succeed mentality, which hasn't been a big thing in the last 10-15 years. It's nice to have that feature back, but this is a game where you can go, all right, you know what, I'm going to just explore for 10-15 minutes and jump out, and there's always something to do. Fast travel is fast, and you get to an area and you can explore, and you've got a catalog of all of the missions that you're doing, and you can bring those to the map, so you're never particularly lost. But you'll be walking through the forest and suddenly someone will just do a passive check, and it's like, oh, there's something over there, and you look and it's a tunnel into a abandoned temple for one of the nature gods or something like that, and you suddenly go, oh shit, I've now got to fight an owlbear. This is cool. It wants to distract you, but you can stay focused if you want to. But the distractions are entertaining and fun and engaging, and the way that the characters in your party engage with each other, it's invested. It's good. It's good.
I'll put this. There you go. In your recommendation, it's gone on the wish list. I will buy it on sale at some point. Because I have Game Pass. I have Starfield on my computer here.
Oh yes.
For me, at some point, I'm doing a playthrough of Fallout 4 again for some reason. But I just miss Fallout. I'm almost ready to play Fallout 76. I miss it so much.
I can tell you with Starfield, I jumped in and played a couple of hours of that, and it is definitely a Bethesda game.
It's a game,
It
and
is.
it has game mechanics where you can perform actions, I believe.
It is exactly what you'd expect from a Bethesda open world game. And
okay with that, right? It's the best I can get until they release, Elder Scrolls 6 or Fallout 5, and it'll probably be 10 years from now. So those assholes. But Baldur's Gate has gone on the wish list. I'd like to talk about an Australian television show, if I may.
No, we don't do homegrown stuff. No, sorry.
It's actually relevant.
I'll make an exception for this one.
Topical. The show is called Court. C*A*. You can do the rest in a bit late. So if you're looking for it,
I've seen adverts for this.
Yes, it is being made for Stan, which is a streaming service in Australia. If you're still watching, you will not be able to watch this anytime soon. But I know they were trying to sell it to people overseas, but for reasons that will become obvious in a minute, they have stopped that. 4 Australian soldiers sent on a mission to a war-torn country are captured by freedom fighters and produce a hostage video that goes viral. Now, you may not be aware of this. I don't know if you watch the news, but there's a little thing going on in the Middle East right now where a bunch of people just got taken hostage. So, including soldiers. So, they have decided to not sell this to anybody right now. Apparently, it was going to be at some sort of convention next week up for sale. They have decided not to do that. This has an interesting cast. The Australian names you might know from this is Kik Gurry. Kik Gurry, probably for the fans of this show, and hopefully you all are, was in Speed Racer, we talked about a couple of months ago.
He's got a couple of people from Speed Racer in it.
Yeah, as is Matthew Fox.
Yeah.
It popped up for the first time in forever. This also stars Sean Penn and Susan Sarandon and Brian Brown. If you don't know who Brian Brown is an Australian actor. He was kind of big in the 80s. He was in Cocktail, of all things.
And he was in FX.
And of course,
we shan't forget The Art of Illusion.
He's turned as Osiris in Gods of Egypt, because of course you're going to make a film about Gods of Egypt, you hire a white Australian man.
Oh yeah, crikey!
In the example of Gods of Egypt, you hire a cast of white men, because Jeffrey Rush was in that as well, so as a god. So they're all white. So it's really weird, actually. So Sean Penn turns up at the start of a film, so this is not going to make a lot of sense for foreign viewers, but Stan, the streaming service, is owned by one of the major TV networks in Australia. He actually has a cameo, so some of the stars of that TV network and their breakfast show have a cameo in this TV show where Sean Penn's like a fictional guest on the show, and they have him doing the Macarena and stuff on breakfast. Okay. It's actually very funny. So this is a weird show. It's absolute dreck. So episode 1 with Sean Penn on his way to Bahati Prinsloo to trade places with the boys. Sorry, it's the wrong episode. My bad. It was episode 6. Episode 1. Where are we? But Bahati Prinsloo is the fictional country which the Australian soldiers are secretly operating in when they are captured. Episode 1's called "Everyone Loves Australians." 4 idiot Australian soldiers are kidnapped behind enemy lines and strike a deal with their captors to make the world's most elaborate hostage videos.
This sounds a little bit like something like an offshoot for 4 Lions or something.
It's similar vibe to 4 Lions, and they're all fucking idiots.
Yeah.
And there are 3 or 4 genuine laugh out loud moments in the first episode. Where I'm in spite of myself, I'm seeing Sean Penn playing Sean Penn doing the Macarena on an Australian breakfast morning TV, and you're like, this is hilarious. And there are a couple of moments like that where you're actually genuinely hilariously funny. It's like, so in the trailer, you'll see they're like, no, we're not Americans, mate. We're Australians. You know, Paul Hogan or Steve Irwin or Mel Gibson. Early Mel Gibson. So there's a few genuine lol moments here, and you're like, but I hated it. I really, really didn't like it. Like, I thought it was boring and it was silly, and not in a good way. It was
Okay.
like really had a lot of money behind it, though. It looked good. But it felt really half-assed and kind of cringy, really
Okay.
cringy. But it made me laugh a few times. So I don't know. That's people who watch the show regularly will know I'm a very hard judge of comedy. So that's something, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, the only other thing that I've been watching is more of One Piece on Crunchyroll, and I'm maybe nearly halfway caught up on episodes, and I've watched 560 odd episodes. There's so much. Oh my goodness. And yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect from an anime. You know, every season the characters go through this wonderful roller coaster of things, of like losing things and gaining things and getting more powers and suddenly going up and everything. The animation is good. The absurdity of the world is good. I hope that they embrace a little bit more of the weird into the Netflix version, because the first season, as I said a couple of like last time, it's good, but it plays it safe quite a lot, and I think that's to its detriment, considering, especially as they go into the Grand Line and the New World in later seasons, things get weird, and there's going to be some really controversial things as well, because like one of the main supporting characters for the Ennis Lobby scenario is a transvestite, and the character is absolutely modeled on Dr. Frankenfurter, which is brilliant, and they're a wonderful character, but it's like, they're playing with a lot of very harsh stereotypes of everything to do with non-heterosexual relationships, and that's problematic. And how are they going to translate that to the big screen? No fucking clue. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. It really is, because you can kind of get away with things in anime that are inappropriate, because, you know, a guy ogles a girl, gets a nosebleed, the girl absolutely smacks the shit out of the guy. It's like, okay, karma. It's not real. We can allow that. In the real world, neither element of that is okay. Neither element. How do we show that? I don't know. And they have not got an easy task ahead of them.
It's certainly with such a inbuilt fan base as well, who are so passionate about it. You've got the bar is up there to try and keep those people happy, considering.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, some might say Netflix's record's been pretty good. A lot of people like Cowboy Bebop, though it didn't do very well.
Yeah. But
So, I mean, I'm
again,
thinking of Ghost in the Shell. That didn't really go very well.
I was also thinking of Death Note.
So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all that I really have.
I've got one more for you. It'll be a quick one. I talked about this. I may have talked about this recently. Something I was looking forward to. This is a new Nicolas Cage film. Not Sympathy for the Devil. The Retirement Plan. When Ashley and her young daughter Sarah get caught up in a criminal enterprise that puts their lives at risk, she returns to estranged father Matt, currently living the life of a retired beach bum in the Cayman Islands. Nicolas Cage stars as Matt. It actually has a decent-ish cast. Ron Perlman, Jackie Earle Haley, and Ernie Hudson turn up in this as well.
Okay.
And I think it's part of a new genre of boomer beat ups. So think there's Taken films with Liam Neeson, who's about 70, and he beats the shit out of like 20-year-old guys, or
Yeah.
Nobody with Bill Odenkirk, who beats the crap out of 20-year-old guys, or John Wick, where Keanu Reeves is about 60 and beats the shit out of 20-year-old guys. This is the same sort of thing. So he is a retired. So Matt is
Grandpa
sort of
action.
grandpa action. I'm trying to find the right buzzword here. Matt is a retired assassin of some kind who now lives in the Cayman Islands, getting drunk all the time. His daughter randomly turns up in his doorstep one day after her mother got caught up in some shit with her boyfriend, and goons get sent. She has a USB drive that her mother put in their backpack that's got microfilm or something. I don't know, fucking know. And the goons turn up to try and get it back off her, and in the process find out that Matt is a lot more dangerous than he looks.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Earl Haley plays the bad guy,
Of course he does.
Donnie. And I was trying to explain to Michelle while we were watching it, but Jackie Earl Haley's actually a good actor. He was in Lincoln, which we saw recently. He
Mm-hmm.
was good in that as the Confederate vice president, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sensational, of course, as Rorschach in
Mm-hmm.
Watchmen. And she's like, but he's fucking terrible in this. And here's the fucking update. Everyone's terrible in this. Everyone is awful in this film. I turned it off after 40 minutes. It's an hour and 43 minutes long. Well, this is significantly worse than Sympathy for the Devil.
Wow.
And that wasn't a good film.
Nope. No, it was not.
This is written and directed by someone called Tim Brown, who has not done much. He
And
did a
probably
film
won't.
a long time ago, produced a film called Defendor, which is a sort of weird superhero film with Woody Harrelson in it. I don't know how he got Nicolas Cage and these guys for this film. They must have been desperate for coin. It's terrible. This is
Wow.
student film level bad. And for a minute there, I thought Nicholas was back. I thought Nick Cage was back, man. I thought, the unbearable weight of massive talent was going to reboot his career a little bit. He was cool again. The Pedro Pascal effect was going to rub off on him a little bit.
Mm.
I was wrong.
Oh,
Sympathy
dear.
for the Devil's bad. This is worse. This is terrible, 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 terrible film. Like, I think we turned this off and watched Fail Army on YouTube for the next 2 hours instead, and that's not a good sign. So if you see this pop up on a streaming service somewhere, look, my advice is to keep scrolling.
Okay, that's a very good health and safety warning.
I think we're done.
That's it.
Ryan Renfield was a good film.
Yes.
So Renfield gave me hope as well, but I feel like that might have been one of a few ones. So anyway, but I think we're done for tonight, and I think we're done for 2023.
We are, yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this wonderful ride. We will be back at some point, maybe like late January, February time in 2024. Sorry, just coughing on my own spit.
I promised myself I wasn't going to cry.
But yes, please, if you do have any recommendations for movies, please, you know where to reach out to us at Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, the Twitters, or the
X's.
It's the send us X's, kisses. Yeah, we'd love to still hear from you, and if we can squeeze it in, we'll try and get some like micro shows in, and they'll be shorter because this is a long one for us. We haven't done a long one like this for a while. But yeah, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure, and I love spending time with my mate right here.
It's a joy. We've been doing this for 9 years. Can you believe that? I think it's 9. Could be 10. I can't quite remember when we started, but
yeah, Yeah, wow.
I feel like I know I recorded a show with you while I was in Japan in 2014. So
yes.
Tusk came out in 2014. It was after Tusk. So
Mhm.
it would be 9 years now. So we'll hopefully see everybody come back next year for year 10.
Year 10, and maybe we'll actually do some upgrades or something. No promises, but maybe. Some time away might be able to. We might do some things.
Thank you, Ryan, on my Facebook feed for watching.
Thank you,
We
Ryan.
love having a bit of back and forth. And if you have a suggestion about something you'd like to hear us talk about, maybe we'll watch the Sloth movie you talked about just for fun and games next year. But
Slaughterhouse, yes.
if you want to be like Ryan, keep an eye on the socials, and we'll see you when we see you.
Until then, ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Good night.